Hi everybody and welcome to the Seal Hospital here at Hunstanton Sea Life. My name is Holly and I work in our rehab centre here with all of our lovely seals. Now you'll notice my good friend here, this is Sammy Jr. I'm going to show you some bits and pieces on him because the real seals have got big nasty teeth and they're much happier in the pens behind me. So this Sammy Jr. demonstrates how we check our seals in. So the first thing we always do is take their temperature. Now seals are mammals just like you and I, so their temperature wants to be the same as ours. If they're getting towards the 36 or lower, we know they've got hypothermia. We need to warm them up quickly. And just like us, if they've got nasty infections, they start rising above 38. So we take their temperature every single feed for the first 2 weeks. And then as long as they're okay, we start dropping it to once a day. Now when they first arrive with us, we have to make sure we know exactly what's wrong with them. So we check them in from their nose all the way down to their tail. So with their face, what we're looking at is their eyes. And we use a special fluorescent dye that shows up any blemishes, any scratches, any imperfections, any cataracts or any ulceration in the eyes. We also check their nose and their mouth for any bite wounds. We check their teeth. This helps us to age them, but it also helps us to identify if there's any problems going on within the mouth area. Then what we do is we feel down their body and we feel into their flippers. Now seal flippers are just like our hands and they've got fingers just like our bones. So we feel all the way along them and into their armpits. Now believe it or not, seals get pox just like we get chicken pox, and the first place they tend to get them is in their armpits, so we always have a very good check to make sure that they're clear. And then we feel down their body. Now we get seals in here at Sea Life Hunstanton from hours old. The little rescue pups that come in at the beginning of June, sometimes they're even premature. So what we have to do is make sure we turn them over and check their umbilicus. They end up with a belly button just like you and I. Then what we do is we feel all the way down to their feet, and again checking the tail area, making sure that there's no broken bones, no damage, no bites, no injuries. Now if there are any injuries, what we do is we take a swab so that we can culture the bacteria that's there and make sure that we're treating it effectively. We have to be very careful with rehab to make sure that we're not using antibiotics that we don't need to, that could increase resistance out in the wild population. Now the other thing that we do is we also take some blood samples. Now we do this weekly if they have an infection to make sure that we're aware of what's going on and whether they're getting better or whether we need to reassess and change tactics. Now any pup that comes in over a month old, we also do a fecal sample to make sure that they haven't got worms. Lungworm is incredibly common in the wild population and we have to make sure that we treat it so that it doesn't cause a secondary infection such as pneumonia. Now towards the end of the summer and into the winter period, we also see pups that come in injured, and sometimes this is through no fault of their own. These are all bits of discarded debris that we've taken off seals' necks, out of flippers. This black string you can see here, this was ingested by one of our grey seals last winter. So we have to make sure that we are thoroughly examining all the seals to make sure we can treat them effectively. Now when we feed them, they've got lots of very sharp teeth, so we don't like to use bottles because they bite through them, but what we do use is our feeding tube. Now this feeding tube slides very easily down into their stomach and is very effective at delivering the fluids nice and quickly so that minimises the contact time with us and stops them getting humanised during their rehab process. Now if you'd like to follow me, we can show you some of the pups we've got in our hospital at the minute. So when our pups first come in, they come into our pens that are here. These are isolation pens and we have one seal in these at a time. In here at the minute we've got Tony. Now Tony, if he comes to say hello, you'll notice has an eye problem. He was bitten by one of the adult seals out in the wash, and what that's done is that's punctured the eye and he has lost the sight, but that doesn't mean he won't be released. He's got perfectly good sight in his left eye and he's just starting to learn to catch his own fish. So you'll see when he's under the water, he's starting to chew those herring. While the pups are in the hospital with us, we weigh them every 2 days, and as soon as they're 15 kilos healthy and feeding for themselves, they move into our pup pool here. Now this space is bigger and this is where they'll stay until they're 25 kilos, and that's the weight that they're ready for release. Now if you're lucky enough to see us feeding, you'll notice that we're wearing bright orange overalls and lovely green wellies. This is for biosecurity. Every single pen has its own set of kit, and then we scrub down in our special disinfectant to make sure we don't pass any infection from one seal onto the other. So the seals, when they first come into the hospital, get started on our special fish soup mixture, which we make from our herring here. We fill it and skin it and blend it up with a special Zoo-Lite mixture to make sure they get all the vitamins, minerals, nutrients and electrolytes that they need to sustain their growth and make sure they put on weight. When they're big enough, they progress onto fish soup with herring, and then very slowly we wean them off the soup so that they end up with just 3 times a day getting fish like this. We give them vitamins to make sure that we top up anything that's lost during the freezing process. And we also give them iron tablets to make sure they stay nice and healthy. Thank you for visiting our seal hospital here at Sea Life Hunstanton. If you see any staff around wearing these lovely blue t-shirts, feel free to ask us as many questions as you like. Otherwise, I hope you have a fantastic day and I'll see you again.